Let's dive right into this explainer. I want you to picture this, an isolated, snow-covered Bavarian farmhouse. It's the bitter cold winter of 1922. We are stepping into a true historical puzzle today, guys, a case that has literally baffled investigators for over a century. Now, this isn't just your standard true crime story. It's a really profound mystery about total isolation, ignored warnings, and a timeline of events that just completely defies logic. So get ready, because the sequence of events we're going to explore today, it unfolds like some dark, intricate clockwork. Just put yourself in this scenario for a second. Imagine the visceral horror of waking up in total isolation, surrounded by miles and miles of thick forest. You step outside to check on your property, and you see a deep set of tracks pressing through the heavy snow. They're coming straight from the dark tree line directly to your front wooden door. But as your eyes trace the path, you realize something that absolutely freezes the blood in your veins. There are no tracks going back out into the woods. None. I mean, talk about a locked room paradox, right? This meant only one thing. For the Gruber family living at the Hinterkaifeck farm, whoever made those prints hadn't just paid them a visit. No, they were secretly living right above their heads, in the attic, pacing the floorboards, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Which brings us to Section 1, the warning signs, a creeping dread. Let's look at how this terror methodically closed in. You see, this nightmare didn't just happen out of nowhere. It started with a creeping paranoia. 6 months prior to the murders, the family's young maid hastily packed her bags and literally fled. She was utterly terrified because she believed the walls were whispering to her, and she constantly heard this phantom pacing up in the attic. Fast forward to mere days before the event, and things get undeniable. An unfamiliar newspaper from a completely different city mysteriously appears on the kitchen table, and the spare house keys just vanish. Finally, by March 1922, we get those unmistakable footprints in the snow and the heavy footsteps pacing right above their beds. Now, what adds a uniquely tragic human element to this whole mystery is that the patriarch, Andreas Gruber, he wasn't oblivious to this. He noticed all these impossible, terrifying things. He even went out of his way to tell his neighbors about the footprints and the weird attic noises. But because he was such a stubbornly independent, isolated guy, he fatally chose not to seek professional help from the police. He just lived with the dread, completely unaware that his countdown had already begun. Let's move to Section 2, the Barn of Horrors, March 31st. So on this specific night, a massive snowstorm rolled in, plunging the entire farm into total, impenetrable isolation. And tragically, it was also the very first day for their brand new maid, Maria. Sometime after dark, the phantom finally came down from the ceiling. But the intruder didn't just bust into the living quarters. Instead, they enacted this grim, highly methodical trap. First, they went out to the barn and created a disturbance to stir up the animals. Knowing the family would hear the restless cattle, the killer just waited in the dark. One by one, Andreas, his wife Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her 7-year-old daughter stepped out into the freezing night to check on the livestock. And one by one, as they crossed the threshold into the dark barn, they were ambushed and struck down with a heavy, iron-tipped farming mattock. But they weren't finished. After hiding the 4 bodies under hay in the barn, the violence moved directly into the farmhouse. The killer walked right past the crackling fireplace, into the bedrooms, and brutally murdered the sleeping new maid Maria, along with Victoria's 2-year-old baby boy, right there in his crib. Now, let's look at the aftermath in Section 3, the phantom stays, a psychological horror. 3. That is the number of entire days this unknown phantom actually stayed living at the farm. Instead of fleeing into the night and using the heavy snowstorm as a cover to escape, they just stayed. It is deeply, deeply unsettling to realize that for 72 hours, neighbors saw smoke casually rising from the chimney into the snowy sky. Inside, the killer calmly lit the fireplace to stay warm. They cooked meals for themselves in the family's kitchen. They even put on their boots, walked back out to the barn, where 4 of the victims lay hidden in the hay, mind you, and proceeded to feed the cattle and milk the cows. They just performed the daily routine of a Bavarian farmer, calmly living their life while the bodies of the 6 rightful owners lay dead just a few feet away. And that leads right into Section 4, an unsolved mystery, the investigation. When the neighbors finally realized the farm had gone eerily silent days later, they went to check on the family. But by the time they pushed open the doors, the killer had already vanished back into the forest, disappearing just as quietly as they came. Now, the German police were utterly baffled by the complete lack of physical evidence leaving the scene. They meticulously interviewed over 100 different suspects, trying to find the ghost who stayed for dinner, but every single lead just completely dried up. The trail was so incredibly cold that investigators actually abandoned standard protocol entirely. I mean, they moved from conventional police interviews and interrogations to incredibly desperate measures. They literally brought in psychics to try and read the crime scene. They even went as far as removing the victims' skulls and sending them to experts in Munich in a desperate yet completely failed attempt to find some hidden clue or profile of the attacker. But absolutely nothing worked. The psychological scar left on the community was so profound that the physical location itself just couldn't remain. Just 1 year after the murders, in 1923, the entire farm at Hinterkaifeck was completely torn down and demolished. The timber and stone were all cleared away, leaving behind absolutely nothing but a solitary memorial cross planted in an empty, snowy field. Which leaves us staring at this final, haunting question. Who was it? Was it a freezing drifter seeking shelter from the bitter cold who eventually just snapped? Was it a neighbor holding a dark, long-standing grudge who knew the family's routine perfectly? Or was it something much more sinister? Based on the timeline, the evidence, and the chilling aftermath we've broken down in this explainer today, what do you take away from this? Who do you think was hiding in the dark? Keep that question in mind, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.